Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the ambivalent approach Donald Trump is showing toward China and its leader Xi Jinping. And this approach also in diplomatic affairs, international affairs is being referred as blow hot, blow cold approach. So to what extent India should be concerned about this approach of Trump toward China, and what is the area which India should be wary of once Donald Trump take the helm of US after coming into the office? Let us try to understand this in more detail. Now, before going into detail of this particular topic, if we try to understand the background in which we are discussing the issue, so as we know recently, China has created new counties around the Ladakh region, which China claims to be its own territory. And obviously, as a response of this, the Ministry of External Affairs has put a stern remark saying that any such kind of strategies will not overall impact the border situation, and India will not give away its overall, what can say, control or its right to exercise control or authority over the border areas. Now, this has come after the LAC detente that has developed between both countries after the BRICS we can say meeting where both leaders PM Modi and Xi Jinping has met, and that has led to detente where many patrolling points which were earlier not accessed by the Indian soldiers could be made accessible to them now. Plus, historically, if you look, both India and China have a strong territorial and border dispute throughout the entire border, either to the northwest in the Aksai Chin and Ladakh area, or to the northeastern region of Arunachal Pradesh, which is the integral part of India, but it is claimed by the China as South Tibet. So, historically, as well as the current situation, can clearly explain you that India and China, despite having a strong trade relationship, in other areas do not enjoy a cordial relation. In this context, since we can say last 20 years, when US and India have enjoyed a strong solidarity and support, have strengthened their bilateral relationship, it is the Trump whose election into the office, and in the 20th on the 20th January, when he is going to take charge of the office, many experts argue that India-China relationship appears poised for the another big test. Now, let us try to understand the election of Trump and what it has to do with Indo-China relations. So, first of all, if you look at the Trump's China instance, he has given a lot of statements after being elected as US president. Anyway, before that, during his candidacy and during his election campaign, he has talked a lot about China. Now, initially, when he won the election, he basically has said that China, apart from few other countries that he has mentioned, he will impose 100% tariff on any import from China. And this was nothing but the continuity of his policy, which he adopted in his first term as president, where he went to what I can call as to extent of trade war with China. So, what experts argue that now Trump seems to be continuing his policy, and obviously the trade relation between between China and US will deteriorate. But at the same time, if we talk about the stance of Trump toward India, he said obviously he has accepted that the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is his good friend, is a good man, and if you remember, during his first presidency, he was invited to India in an event called as Namaste Trump, and to reciprocate it, Trump then invited PM Modi to US, where a Howdy Modi event was organized. So at the same time, he also has accepted that India can also be, the imports from India can also be subjected to high rate of tariff. So this is something that is a contrasting statement. But in recent times, what is worrying is that his stance on China seems to be softening, and this is clearly visible from the mellowing down of his tone on the China. And one of the reasons many experts believe can be due to the influence of Elon Musk, who is believed to be the member of his inner circle and also has been appointed as a member of DOG, the new department, that is Department of Government Efficiency, that Trump has created or Trump will create once he comes into office. So, as far as the Musk is concerned, who is obviously a very important ally of his president, and his interest in China is very, very critical, because Musk has enjoyed the development of Tesla there, especially in the Shanghai area. He was able to open a large manufacturing plant, and that also after taking a huge amount of loan from the Chinese company. And to understand the significance of this, if you try to look at the history, you'll see seldom such cases where any US businesses or any US businessman was able to open a factory in China or business in China at such a large scale without any local partner. But Elon Musk was able to do so, and this also you can understand from the fact that he gave India a miss, while which he talked about that he will visit India. Musk talked that he will visit India, open electrical vehicle manufacturing plant, but later on he said that rather he is going to China and maybe later he will come to India. So obviously it shows the importance he attaches to China, and by default Trump might be influenced by Musk's decision. So all of that is sparking unease in section of India's strategic community that how Trump is going to play the China card. Now, also one thing you have to keep in mind that the China is not only important for Trump, not only for Musk, but also for the US economy. Because if you look at the US China bilateral trade, it is somewhere around we can call as a $600 billion of value. About 427 billion dollars is something that we can say is export from China to India, China to USA, and similarly 148 billion dollar is US export to China. So it runs a huge deficit. US runs a huge deficit of 279 billion dollar. To understand this, the US India bilateral trade value stands somewhere about $120 billion. So that is almost 1/5 of US China trade. So that is why China is not only critical to us but also critical to the US economy as a whole. So what has been the Trump's response overall? Now, in this context, many experts, diplomatic experts argue that this is nothing but rather what Trump is doing is his general policy of flattering enemies and unsettling his friends. And it is due to this reason he is giving this kind of statement. Trump also said that he has taken a kind of U-turn. Earlier, he had said that he will ban the TikTok. He was completely opposed to TikTok, but now he said that once he come into power, he will save the Chinese owned social media app TikTok. And also to give you a brief this idea about the TikTok in India. So during the BJP rule, already the TikTok app has been banned by the government of India. Not only that, to show his card, he also has invited the Chinese President Xi Jinping for his inauguration, while Prime Minister Modi has not been invited. So these are some of the steps and the statement that he has taken in the last few weeks and the months has unsettled Indian strategic community. Now let us try to understand in more detail about the Trump's ambivalence. Many experts argue that any kind of extreme anti-China policy, even extra harsh anti-China policy, if Trump takes, it will not be beneficial for India. And similarly, if China and US make certain deal, it also is not going to be good for India. So any kind of extreme measures is not beneficial for India, rather it is harmful. So what India would want is a moderate stance, or more favorably or more preferably what you can call as the continuation of the US approach since last few decades. Now, many experts argue that once Trump takes office, there are twin dangers India might face. One danger is obviously many of the Trump's his political members, his cabinet members, they might have a hawkish stance on trade and investment flow, specifically from India. And that is why he also has said that tariff can be imposed on a lot of Indian goods. So that is where India can lose. And second, if China and US are able to make a grand bargain, which will further boost the credentials of Trump as ultimate deal maker, then also India might be at a loss. Now, Indo-US relationship is expected to stay strong despite all these hiccups. That is the general overview, because obviously if we talk about the last 20 years, especially since the Bush presidency, the relationship in both countries have strengthened, and not only in one sphere, but rather this strength we see in all the spheres, whether it is technological area, whether it is the defense cooperation, whether it is the space-based cooperation, and overall trade and bilateral, this we can say trade mechanism. Now, what is the Chinese reaction about all this? So recently, the Chinese Communist Party's mouthpiece has published an article, and as per this article, now it seems to be arguing for such an approach where China and US should focus on building a ties based on the cooperation, especially in the fields such as technology. So it seems that due to the mellowing of the approach of Trump and his ambivalence attitude, China would also try to take advantage and help advantage from this particular situation, and that is why such kind of statements we are seeing here. Now, during the Biden presidency, there has been a very harsh measure taken on China by his team. For example, a series of sanctions and restrictions were imposed, specifically targeting the Chinese tech sector, especially the semiconductor areas. And China also has, we can say, retaliated, and it hit back with its own curbs, including it has put a curb on the export of critical minerals to the United States. So this was something that China would try to again ameliorate, or we can say improve, once Trump takes the office. So what is going to be the India's plan? Now, unless and until Trump makes his policy very clear after taking the office, India for its part is trying to ride the uncertainty over the Trump's approach to China. And in this context, we also have to understand that very soon Prime Minister Modi, the leader of India, will have the opportunity to meet both the leaders, that is the US President Donald Trump as well as the Xi Jinping from China. The reason is because India is going to host the Quad group meeting in this particular year, that is 2025, where New Delhi would want Trump to travel to India, and there the face-to-face meeting can happen. Quad, as you know, is a group that is made up of 4 countries: US, India, Australia, and Japan. Similarly, in the same year, the China is going to host SCO Summit, that is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a group where India, Pakistan, China, all 3 countries are members. So, for attending of that, Modi might travel to China. So he would have opportunity to talk and take the gauge of the temperature in both the capitals of Washington and Beijing. Now, apart from this, what we can call as the semantics and the display of the languages statements by the world leaders, if we try to understand this entire situation from the strategic depth or a strategic point of view, what we can understand is that in the past 1 decade at least, the US has followed a very aggressive approach toward China. And this was largely to position itself as a leading power in the Asia Pacific. And this comes especially after the launching of the OBOR initiative by China, or the Silk Belt Route, or the Belt and Road initiative by China. And to position itself as a leading power in the Asia Pacific, to have a strong aggressive approach toward China, the stronger US-India ties was something that was central to it. It is through these ties, US was trying to push back Beijing in the region of Asia Pacific. And most experts expect Trump to continue with that same broad approach. But what can make situation complicated and different is the presence of the Trump's allies like Musk in his team, and that could temper what the US president does. So this is what we should be basically looking out for. However, in conclusion, we can simply say that US pivot toward India is unlikely to change. No matter what Trump says and does, it will not basically change the fact that US and India have reached such a stage in the bilateral relationship where both countries enjoy mutual trust and have a strong cooperation in many sectors. And Musk and other industrialists in his team will no doubt try to temper with his excessive tariff plans. But to understand, again, we'll have to wait and watch and see that what Trump actually does once he takes charge of the office. So that is all about this particular video. I hope you got the gist of the India's concern due to the Trump's ambivalence approach to both China and India. Thank you very much.